Coming up on today's show.
The survival phase of life starts in the year 40, when you turn 40.
But I would think that people, 40 to 50 are also accumulating. They get that job, they start making that money, and they start accumulating more stuff.
Because I'm in survival. I am 45, so I'm running my own business and trying to drive kids where they need to go. And if it's not on a calendar, it's not going to happen.
The 4 phases of an organized life. Part 2 today on Keeping You Organized. Well, hello and welcome to Keeping You Organized. Today we've got our second half of the 4 phases of an organized life. In our last episode, we talked about that 7 to 21-year-old and also that 21 to what was up to 40 years old, I believe. And we're going to bring back Lisa Woodruff from Organized365.com. Lisa, welcome back.
Thanks so much for having me, John.
Well, it's been great, and we've been talking a lot about these concepts that are in your book, The Mindset of Organization. Take back your house one phase at a time. And these phases, what we identified in our last episode, are these kind of life stages. We talked about 7 to 21, which is kind of that young adolescent. You're getting a lot of things. You're trying to get organized, come up with the logic. And then we moved into the 21 to 40-year-old, which was accumulation. You're getting out on your own, maybe in your first home, trying to organize a much bigger space, maybe involving other people. So where are we going to go from here? What is that next phase of life?
Well, by the time you hit 40, if you're an American woman, this is when you enter the survival phase of life that lasts until about 55. And it can be different for different women. So if you never got married and don't have children, it's ironic, you still end up in the survival phase of life. But if you did get married and have children, you're surviving a little bit more. Yeah. But the survival phase of life starts in the year 40. When you turn 40, there is just something that happens in a woman's brain that changes when she turns 40. She has a different perspective. And it is the highest income earning years for an American woman. She's usually earning an income, raising a family, taking care of a house. And this is the time of life when she'll start to need to take care of her parents as well. So she's in the sandwich generation, and she is almost always in her car. So she has great ideas about how she'd like to get organized, how she'd like to pare down, but she's literally never home long enough to get it done.
Yeah. Now, it's interesting, the phase before, the second phase was the survival phase, right? Or, the accumulation phase. This is the survival phase. But I would think that people, 40 to 50 are also accumulating. They get that job, they start making that money, and they start accumulating more stuff. So are there some techniques from the other phase that we can use still if we're still accumulating stuff?
It is a different accumulation. Often in your 40s and 50s, you might be accumulating from a family member who has passed away, or you are upgrading what you accumulated in your 20s and 30s to a nicer sofa or furniture you've been wanting for a long time. So it's a more purposeful accumulation, not out of necessity. Like in your 20s and 30s, like the child is growing, you must go to the store and buy clothing. In the 40s and 50s, you go to the store because you're going to upgrade your wardrobe, or you've gotten a new job, or you've gotten a promotion. There's a different pace to the accumulation, a different level of accumulation that happens in the 40s and 50s. Now, I did do a couple podcast episodes about how these phases can overlap. So a lot of people are having their babies in their 40s now. And so you do add that accumulation from the 20s and 30s to the 40s when that happens.
Yeah. Now, I would imagine if you're accumulating new stuff to kind of replace old stuff, then there's got to be some kind of strategy for getting rid of the old stuff rather than just putting it in the basement and it's a second sofa or whatever, right?
Right. So in the 20s and 30s, you tend to accumulate but not declutter. In the survival years, as you get new things, you let the old things go. You are much less likely to have a garage sale or even take it to a consignment shop. You'll give it to a friend who needs it or just donate it right away. So the discard happens much quicker than in the accumulation phase.
Okay. Now, we talked about different tools in the other phases. Are there some other tools or organizing devices or things like that someone would use in this survival mode that they maybe didn't use in the other phases?
Yes. So now we get more into the electronic organization now. This is when you have all your family members on a Google Calendar. This is when you use a shared app like the to-do list app so that you can share grocery lists. And like I have a bunch of lists. I go to the hardware store, I go to Costco, I go to a dollar store. And so as the kids will say, I need this, I need that, I put it on the proper list. And my husband and I can both see that list. My kids are getting older, and so they're going to be able to see the list this summer, and I'm going to teach them how to do laundry this summer. And so they start to take over some of that shopping. You're doing more training of adults and less doing all the work yourself. You're doing it with your kids and with your family as opposed to doing it all yourself.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about the calendar. So I'm intrigued about that. Do you have your kids take and put each of them have a calendar, their own Google Calendar, plus you have a master one where they're all talking to each other?
Yes, the goal is that my husband and my children put things on the Google Calendar, but right now I created all the calendars.
Okay.
I installed them on all their phones, and I update all of the calendars because no one else will update them. And now, for the last week, everyone keeps asking me, when is this or where are we going? And I just look at them and I go, it's on your calendar.
Right.
It's on your calendar. And I'm making them use the calendar. My goal is that if in 12 months they're putting things on the calendar themselves and looking at it before they talk to me, that will be a win for me.
Yeah, yeah. Is there a phase when at what age do people start understanding the purpose of calendars? I mean, do you get them at 12 or 15, or how do you recommend that?
I think that really depends on the child. My kids are almost 16 and 17, and they're highly resistant to mom's Google Calendar, but they understand the high school Google Calendar. So I think it's just a matter of, if you want me to pick you up, you might want to put it on that list so that I know where to be and when, because I'm in survival. I am 45, so I'm running my own business and trying to drive kids where they need to go. And if it's not on a calendar, it's not going to happen.
Right. So I would imagine at this survival stage also there's some maybe time management or productivity tips you might have to kind of, help us along.
Yes. So when women tend to go through my home organization challenge at this phase of life, they're not like when I was in my 20s, I would love to reorganize my kitchen. I did it all the time. Now I want it to function. Like I want my teenagers and my husband and guests that come to the house to be able to get what they need in the kitchen and get out. I'm no longer interested in if all the glasses are rainbow colored, so it's more functional, less Pinteresty.
Right. Oh, that's great. So any other techniques or tools for this phase, the survival phase?
Yeah, my biggest one is to hire help. If you can't get help from your spouse and your kids, then realize that there is a lot on a woman's plate and you're doing multiple full-time jobs. So send all the clothes to the laundromat once a month, or have somebody clean your house, or get meals delivered. You cannot do everything. So pick what's most important to you and go ahead and hire out some of these tasks.
Okay, great. Well, listen, we're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, I think what we're going to hit is maybe the empty nester phase. I know the kids are maybe getting a little bit older, but that brings a whole bunch of new challenges. So we're going to talk about those when we come back. Now there's a place just for you. Life can be busy, and you still have to keep it all together. That's why you like to be organized and in control. Introducing MyOrganized.life. A special place where you can get ideas and solutions to organize what's important to you, your important papers, your important decisions, your important life events. We show you the ideas and products to stay organized in your life. See what's new. Stop by and say hello. Visit us at any time at www.myorganized.life. It's just for you. MyOrganized.life by Smead. Find us at www.myorganized.life. MyOrganized.life. We're back now and keeping you organized, talking about the 4 stages of organization in life. We've been through 3 of the 4 so far, and now we are with Lisa Woodruff, Organize365.com. And Lisa, talking now about, I'm imagining 55 and up, right?
Yes, this is the longest phase of life. It starts around the age of 55, and I call this one downsizing and legacy.
Okay.
This is typically when you are an empty nester if you had your kids in your 20s. Now, you may push that later if you had your kids in your 40s, or if you never had children at all, you might start downsizing in your late 40s, early 50s. So there's not really a designated time for this. I also find that if you lose a parent, like I lost my father when I was in my 30s, I already started downsizing in my early 40s because I realized, oh my goodness, it takes a long time to empty out a family home. So downsizing is really a state of mind, and it can happen anytime in your 30s and beyond.
Yeah. Now, what's interesting, I found, and both of my parents are gone, but to getting them to downsize, they say they want to do it, but to actually do it was really a challenge. How do you work with people who, yeah, I want to downsize, but then you start trying to go through stuff? How do you, eat the elephant one bite at a time?
So, downsizing is very generationally based. The silent generation, I believe they are in their 90s, their late 80s and 90s, and they never accumulated very much to begin with. Then you have the baby boomers that are next, and there are older baby boomers and younger baby boomers, and they span 20 years, I think. And they accumulated a lot of stuff. They were born at a time that was very affluent in the United States, and they raised their children in the 80s and 90s. They accumulated a lot for themselves in their childhood, more for their children when their children were being raised. And now they have grandchildren, and literally there is not a big enough Toys R Us for them. Like, they are still accumulating for their grandchildren. So the idea that they would downsize their family home that everyone still comes to on the holidays is really a hard concept for them to think about, because they've never lived in a time that was not full of stuff and was not achieving getting more things. And they have a lot of value on the things that are in their house. Like, they remember standing in line overnight to get the Cabbage Patch doll for their child. And so why would we get rid of the Cabbage Patch doll that's 40 years old? So they have a lot invested in the things that are there. Whereas Gen X, and especially the millennials, have more of a, they enjoy experiences more than they do things. They like more space. They like smaller houses. And so they don't value stuff as much. So when you're in that downsizing legacy phase, I really try to get the homeowner to think about, what is the memory? What is the heritage? What is the legacy you're trying to pass on? You're not trying to pass on Cabbage Patch dolls for the next 200 years, but you might want to take all of your kids' softball jerseys and turn those into a quilt that they can sleep under or play with when they're at your house or something like that.
Wow. Yeah. So let's get more into that, because I like that kind of the focus on the legacy. What are some other ways that you help create a legacy and get organized at the same time?
Well, a lot of what's being stored in those houses are memories. And so if there are like 200 of these little Beanie Babies, maybe we take pictures of all of them, or we pick everybody's favorite Beanie Baby and we keep 8 and we donate literally 200 of them. Or we take all of your kids' baby clothes that you saved and now you have grandchildren, and you make a little baby blanket out of your favorites of all of those. One baby blanket, and you get rid of boxes and boxes of baby clothes. You look at all of your holiday ornaments and you pick out your favorite ones to pass on to your great grandchildren, and then you let the rest go. So finding what is the best and finding how you want to pass those memories on. Photos, of course, being the hardest.
Now, this sounds like a big project to me. So
Yes.
how do you, as a professional organizer, I'm sure you help people do this, but how do you kind of parse it out so it's not so overwhelming?
So in the accumulation stage, the women want to do it with you, and they do it mostly on their own. Once they learn the skill, they do it on their own. In the survival phase of life, 40 to 55, women want to hire professional organizers to do it for them because they literally have no time.
Right.
In the downsizing and legacy phase, 55 plus, they enjoy working with a professional organizer because they get the knowledge and they get the companionship and they get the direction to do a project. But there's no hurry up and get it done. So part of a professional organizer's job is to keep them on their own timeline. Like, okay, in 2017, we're going to focus on all the clothing items that are stored in your house. In 2018, we're going to look at all the photos and those kind of memorabilia, because they do have plenty of time to get these jobs done. And if you just focus on looking at one kind of item in the house each year, then they can meet with a professional organizer maybe once a month or once a quarter and still meet their own goals.
Right. Wow, that's great advice. Anything else for this this generation, this 55 plus, either tool or technique that they can use to be more organized?
Yes, really understanding what your kids want, and what they really want is you. So it's much more meaningful if you can spend the day going through those baby boxes with your kids and telling them the stories of when they first rolled over in this outfit or grandma so-and-so held them in that outfit. That is what your kids in these generations want more than they want the items. And after you have that memory with your kids, then they can either say, yeah, Mom, will you put all that together and just make one baby blanket for all the grandchildren combined? Or no, Mom, it was really nice reliving these memories with you. We can let all of these go.
Wow.
And for the younger generations to really realize that these items weren't just saved because they could be saved or because the house was big enough or because your parents are hoarders, which they're not. They were saved out of love. Like they worked really, really hard to earn all of these things, to make your childhood great, to provide for your children. And if you just say, Mom, get rid of it all, that really hurts her because she spent so much time accumulating all of this for you and preserving it so you would have it in the future, not realizing how plentiful things would be in today's day and age.
Well, that's a real win-win kind of, attitude as well. So, well, Lisa, we're just about out of time here. I want to promote the book again. It's called The Mindset of Organization. Take back your home one phase at a time. We'll have links with it in our show notes. And tell me just a little bit about, first of all, your podcast and how people can access it, and then about your organizing business. And if someone wants to work with you, how they go about doing that.
Sure. Well, thank you. My podcast is called Organize 365. You can just search for it wherever you're listening to this podcast. Yep. And I primarily work with people online. So I have a Sunday Basket program, and there are licensed Sunday Basket workshop providers in different cities across the United States. And I have an online home organization program called 100 Days Home Organization.
Wow. And all that at organize365.com.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, we will definitely link to that in the show notes as well, smead.com/podcast, if you're listening on the road and don't have that access right now. And Lisa, I think this has been great. I think people will relate. Well, definitely they're going to relate to one of the stages, if not all of them.
Yes.
And
right.
The differences. So, folks, if you did not hear the first half of this podcast from last time, go back and either watch or listen it, and you will, I definitely guarantee you'll pick some things up for it. And Lisa, we'll have you back again.
Thanks so much. I'd love it.
Okay, there you have it, folks. We are now through all phases of life. We've got tools and techniques that we can use, and but there's one more thing you don't have, and that's whatever the content is on our next episode of Keeping You Organized. See you then.